So remember, you guys should get used to this by now, but if you need to pause, when you see the pause symbol, probably the best time to pause. If you've already taken whatever notes you need to, don't pause. Just continue on with the presentation and you'll be good to go. Objective: the student will be able to multiply and divide negative integers. This will be done through a presentation and classroom activity. Remember, you guys are doing the presentation right now. The classroom activity will be a check for understanding activity in class tomorrow. So negatives, the reason we're doing multiplication division, it's actually exactly the same. We're not going to have any division problems for the homework questions. I mean, the check for understanding questions at the end of the presentation, but it's the same thing. It's not that hard. You'll find out in a second. Like first, what do we know about negative numbers? This is just a question to make you think, what do we know? So we know it's anything to the left of 0 on the number line. It's opposite of a positive number. So like, for example, here's some rule number 1. Positive times a positive equals a positive. For example, 9 times 4 is going to equal 36. They're both positive numbers, so our answer is positive. You should already kind of have an understanding of that. Anything positive times a positive equals negative. In a minute with rule number 2, that's where we start throwing a little wrench in the works, because I told you, usually it's like the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th grade, not 3rd, 4th, 5th, sometime in that area you start experiencing negative numbers, and all of a sudden, like right now, we have a negative number times a positive number, your answer will always be negative. So for example, negative 9 times negative 4, now it's going to be negative 36. So that positive, when we throw that negative one in there, that's why the answer comes out negative. So a negative times a positive will always have a negative answer. And this shouldn't be confused with addition. So last is a negative times a negative will equal a positive. So if we have negative 9 times a negative 4, our answer will be positive 36. So again, don't confuse it with addition. Addition and multiplication are two totally different things. So negative times a negative would be a positive. That would be rule 3, I'm telling you. So you should already have at least these written in your notes. Positive times a positive equals a positive. Negative times a positive equals a negative. Negative times a negative equals a positive. Please, please, please put that in your notes. Rule 4 gets kind of confusing. So even any even amount of negatives will have a positive answer. For example, negative times a negative times a negative times a positive times a negative equals a positive answer. So I know this is get confusing, but I'm going to start circling the numbers in a second. But when you have a total amount of negatives, so we have the first one is negative, second one is negative, third one, and we have 4 negative numbers. So 4 negative numbers is an even number. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So, or 2, 4, 6, and anything ends in 0 is all positive. So if we multiply all those together, we're actually going to get 24. And since we know the answer is going to be positive, we just turn the positive sign to a positive number. Next one, any odd amount of negatives will have a negative answer. So we have negative times a positive times a negative times a positive times a negative. So the answer is going to be negative 12. And how we're going to do this, again in a second, you guys are going to see the problems pop up there. So we're going to start circling them. So we have 1 negative, we have 2 negatives, we have 3 negatives. So remember, odd numbers are anything that ends in 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. So 3 is an odd number. So if we multiply all this together, it's going to be 12, and we know it's odd. So what do we know about multiplication division? Multiplication division are basically, I don't want to say the same because they're not the same. Multiplication division, but it usually follows the same rules. So in a second, you're going to find that's going to pop up over here. All we're going to do is treat it exactly the same. So all the rules are going to be the same. So rules 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are going to be exactly the same, but instead of that multiplication sign, we change it to a negative. So positive divided by a positive will be a positive, negative divided by a positive will be negative, and negative divided by a negative will be a positive. So here's your pause symbol. Remember, you guys, pause, take a few moments. If you need to go back, get all those rules written down. If you don't, go on to the next part of the presentation. So here's a few minutes. Here's a few problems. Spend a few minutes, do these problems. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7 problems. It shouldn't take you too long. So spend the time, do all of the problems. Please do all the problems. And then in a minute, you might hear some noise. I'm just going to stop talking till the answers come up. So there's your guys' answers. Some are positive and some are negative. If you did not include the the negative sign, it would be wrong. So you didn't do the negatives. Hopefully you did. Go back, find out what you did wrong, and redo it. So to recap, So we have 5 rules. Teachers will only go over 2 rules. I think 5 is better, but some will only go over 2 rules about the odds and evens, but that kind of confuses people. But remember multiplication. So rule 1, negative plus negative equals negative times negative equals positive, and rule 2, 3, 4, 5. Make sure those are on your notes somewhere. It's not too hard. If you refer back to your notes like that, those 3 I gave you, rules 1, 2, and 3, I'll write that on the board all the time. So those are pretty important to know. So memorize those 3 for sure. The other ones you use, but yes, you don't necessarily use them as often. Yeah, you do use them often, but the student will be able to add and subtract negative integers, which is wrong. The student will actually be able to multiply and divide negative integers. This will be done through presentation and classroom activity.